Now, Special Prosecutor Martin Amidou has completed the corruption risk assessment conducted into government's transaction with the Agyapa Minerals Royalties Limited. According to his office, the process was concluded as far back as October 15 and had forwarded findings of same to the Presidency and the Finance Ministry on October 16. In August this year, the OSP, as part of its mandate, requested from the Finance Ministry documents regarding the Special Purpose Vehicle, SPV, which helped the country secure about $1 billion to finance infrastructural projects. This follows criticisms from civil society organizations about red flags in the transaction. On a press release today, Martin Amidou said his office could not continue withholding the announcement of the completion of its report to the public. We've been joined by the head of one of the CSOs which raised questions about the deal, Ben Boakye, Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy. Mr. Boakye, were you aware prior to Mr. Amidou's release that the corruption risk assessment had been completed?
We had heard, some snippets of information that, that report had been submitted, but we were only waiting to have that confirmation or demand, for that to be done. Unfortunately, the Special Prosecutor came out himself to actually indicate that, the report had been submitted to the President and the Finance Minister.
So now that that report has been submitted, what is your expectation from the Finance Ministry and the Presidency?
We wait to hear what the details are. I think we've only had some media reports on what the President's action is for some agreements to go back to Parliament. We don't know what specific agreements are going to go back to Parliament. But it is important for accountability that we're getting some results for some of the documents to be reopened for discussion. That provides, space for us to make inputs at the parliamentary level. And we would hope that it's not going to be another rush through Parliament, but we would be allowed to submit memoranda, analysis, introspection of all the processes that we want to get into, so that we can guarantee the interest of the state. And I think essentially this is what we're hoping we can generate from this new directive.
With 35 days to go to the election, Mr. Boakye, would you advise, for instance, that this deal is left for the next Parliament to deal with?
We can have the discussion. We can continue to govern our country to see what is best for Ghana. If we think that the mineral revenues can generate some resources for us to develop our country, we should structure it right. We should look at all the options that could ensure that we are actually optimizing the royalties and not a structure that is really much difficult to appreciate. So the discussion can be ongoing, whilst we go through the election, and then maybe next year, if we have a firm decision on what is good for Ghana, we can proceed with it.
Right. So you would advise then that we proceed with caution and perhaps promulgate this deal next year?
I think we can go on. It's a conversation. So the earlier we start the conversation, the better. And I think once we have this directive and we know that some documents will be going to Parliament, civil society, we are not going to wait whether there's an election or not. We're going to start writing. We're going to start putting pieces together so that we can inform the discussion, inform citizens about what needs to go into such an agreement to ensure that people benefit. Now, that is essentially what we'll be doing, waiting whatever decision government decides to take. Because ultimately the decision will be that of government, whether to decide to proceed or not to proceed. But we are going to start engaging around the issues, analyzing facts that could be important for future decisions around such an agreement.
Now, the Finance Minister has had this corruption risk assessment report since the 16th of October, so has the Presidency. In your view, have they moved fast enough to react to Mr. Amidou's findings?
I'm sure maybe the report wasn't too good for the ministry. If it was, it would have been out. For example, if they had had the clearance to go ahead with a transaction, I'm sure the whole world would have known. So We would need to know the content of that report, what were the specific highlights of that report. And that also informs the kind of analysis that we'll do. It informs the strategy that will be used to engage around these issues to ensure that we protect the interests of the country.
Have you made an official request for a copy of that report?
No, we just had the official announcement today. So,
will you be making that request?
I mean, it's a broader civil society conversation. We're a coalition, so we would converge and see what next steps there are, and we would take them as we agree.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boakye, for joining us. Ben Boakye, of course, Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, one of the 30 civil society organizations that raised questions about the Agyapa Deal.